What if the person you still cry over losing was never taken from you as punishment, but as protection? What if the silence, the distance, the unexpected ending weren't rejection, but God closing a door before it could hurt you in a way you couldn't even imagine yet? Because sometimes it's not your heart that's wrong, it's your vision. You see loss, God sees rescue. You see loneliness, God sees preparation. And between those two truths lives a question almost every wounded heart has whispered at some point. Why did this hurt so much if it was for my good? The truth is, not every separation is abandonment. Some are intervention. And the problem is, in the moment it's happening, it's almost impossible to tell the difference. Your heart can't see what God is seeing. It only feels the emptiness of the absence. It only feels the empty side of the bed, the silent phone, the routine you now have to relearn without that person inside it. And it's exactly in that emptiness that most people make the mistake of interpreting God's protection as abandonment. Today we're talking about 7 signs that God is protecting you from the wrong relationship, even when it feels like exactly the opposite. And if any of these signs strikes a chord in your chest while I speak, don't ignore it. It might be the very confirmation your soul has been waiting for. Sign number 1. Peace disappears before the person does. Before any door truly closes, something inside you was usually already restless. You prayed, but you felt a weight you couldn't explain. You smiled in the photos, but your spirit already knew something your mind hadn't accepted yet. Isaiah 26:3 says, "The Lord will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in Him." Notice that. Perfect peace is the promise for those who remain steadfast in God, not for those straining to make a relationship work. So when peace starts fading from a relationship, that's not your imagination. That's the Spirit of God whispering before your mouth can even put into words what your heart already felt. Often you can't even point to the exact reason for the unease. It isn't one specific fight. It isn't one clear betrayal. It's just a constant sensation of holding your breath around someone who should have made you feel rest instead. And that uneasiness rarely comes from nowhere. It comes because the Spirit of God living inside you recognizes misalignment before your mind can even process it. You may try to push that feeling down with logical explanations, telling yourself you're overreacting, that you're being paranoid, that you just need to trust more. But the peace God gives doesn't require that kind of constant mental effort to maintain. It's either simply present, or it simply isn't. Sign number 2. God allows you to see what you tried to ignore. There were warnings. There almost always are. Small inconsistencies you chose not to look at too closely. Promises that never turned into action. A pattern that kept repeating, but that you covered with hope. Jeremiah 17:9 says, "The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure, and who can understand it?" That verse doesn't condemn what you felt. It simply reveals why feelings alone were never enough to guide a decision of that magnitude. And sometimes God lets the truth become too visible to keep ignoring, precisely so He can pull you out before the damage grows greater. It's the friend who comments something without meaning to. It's the message that shows up at the wrong moment. It's the memory that returns right when you were about to justify the behavior again. God isn't exposing you to shame you. He's waking you up before you get even more lost inside an illusion you helped build yourself, because you wanted so badly for it to work. Sign number 3. The separation hurts, but your soul breathes again. This is one of the most confusing signs, because the pain feels like proof that something went wrong. But there's a difference between the pain of a loss and the weight of captivity. When something ends for protection, the heart cries, but the soul slowly begins to breathe again. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the broken-hearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." God doesn't step back from your pain, He steps closer to it. And it's exactly in that closeness that you start to notice the difference between what was lost and what was actually saved. You might be crying at night and still feel a strange relief during the day. You might miss specific moments, and at the same time, feel like you can finally breathe deeply without that weight on your chest. Those two things aren't contradictory. They coexist when the separation comes from God. Because grieving a person can exist right alongside the freedom from a burden you didn't even realize you were carrying until it was lifted from you. Sign number 4. Spiritually mature people around you sense the same discomfort you do. When God is protecting you from something, it's rarely just you who feels it. Someone who prays for you, someone mature in faith, says something that confirms what was already stirring in your spirit. Proverbs 11:14 says, "Where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in the abundance of counselors there is safety." That doesn't mean you need everyone's approval, but when spiritually mature voices, without even talking to each other, sense the same warning, that's usually not coincidence. That's confirmation. Maybe it was your mother, who never said anything directly, but went quiet in a different way whenever that person's name came up. Maybe it was a friend of faith who, gently, asked if you were truly okay, or if you'd just gotten used to feeling not okay. God uses people to confirm what He's already saying deep in your heart, because He knows that sometimes alone, you doubt what you feel. Sign number 5. God closes the door in a way you cannot force back open. You tried. You prayed for it to work out. You did everything you could to keep it alive. But no matter how hard you tried, the door simply wouldn't budge. Revelation 3:7 says, "What He opens no one can shut, and what He shuts no one can open." That means if something truly comes from God, you won't have to destroy your peace trying to force it to keep existing. And if you're exhausted trying to keep alive something only God can end, maybe that exhaustion isn't your weakness. Maybe it is the sign itself. Because there's a difference between fighting for something God is building and fighting against something God has already decided to end. The first fight strengthens you. The second just wears you down, even when persisting feels noble. Sign number 6. After the initial pain, a clarity arrives that you didn't have before. Over time, memories that once seemed sweet begin to show what they really were. Behaviors you used to justify start making sense in a different light. You're not rewriting the story, you're finally seeing it without the fog of hope that insisted on covering everything. 2 Corinthians 5:7 says we live by faith, not by sight. That includes feelings. Because if your trust in God depended only on what you felt, rather than on a deeper truth, you would have stayed trapped in it. But the clarity that comes afterward is God Himself showing you what your emotions alone never would have revealed. What once looked like romance starts to look like control. What once looked like passion starts to look like instability. And that new vision doesn't arrive to make you feel guilty for having loved, but to protect you from loving that way again. Sign number 7. You start craving more depth than you used to settle for. Something shifts inside you. You no longer settle for empty promises. You no longer accept crumbs of attention as if they were real love. Romans 12:2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may discern what is the good, pleasing, and perfect will of God." This is the quietest sign of all, because while the separation still hurts, a new hunger is already being born inside you. And that hunger is what will keep you from ever settling again for what almost destroyed you. If you recognize any of these signs right now, I need to remind you of something. The pain you feel today doesn't mean God got it wrong. It means He was already working before you were able to understand. Romans 8:28 says we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. All things, including the relationship that ended, including the silence you still don't understand, including this pain that feels like it doesn't make sense right now. Because one day, you're going to look back and realize that wasn't the end of a love story, it was the beginning of your freedom. And when the right time comes, you'll understand that what felt like rejection was actually protection all along. God didn't take you out of that relationship to leave you alone. He took you out of it to prepare you for something that won't require you to give up your peace just to feel loved.